finally, this year, we found this material in Kyoto, and I said, "Can you make me a shirt with that?" And I bought the material, and she made the shirt.
This morning, I am so pleased to say I have a longtime friend. We've been in so many different committees and boards together, and he sponsored me in a very prestigious club. It's called the Tokyo Club. He was one of my sponsors, along with Nick. Nick was the first, you were the second, so I just had to let you know that. Anyway, we're sitting out on his deck, and it's a beautiful day today. We have the ocean, we can see the ocean right over here to the left of us. We're sitting up high because this is a two-story house, but we're sitting on top of a hill. It's a hill, I guess you'd call it a hill or a mountain. What would you think?
Well, it's one of the foothills for Mount Amagi.
Right, it's one of the foothills. Anyway, I want you all to give a big hand to Paul Hoff. Paul Hoff, here he is.
Hi, Lance.
How are you doing there, Paul?
Good, thanks for coming down to the Izuvian Republic, we call it.
Izuvian Republic, is that what the flag is?
That's what the flag is.
Izuvian Republic.
So you see, Izu got merged into Shizuoka Prefecture 100 and some years ago.
Well, that's right.
Before
I forgot
that,
you're the history buff. You know.
Before that,
right.
It was Izu No Kuni, and that goes way back to Emperor Tenmu's period, so more than 1,000 years. And it's a very special place.
And you've been living here since 2000? No, since 2012. You've been living here.
We've been living here since 2012, and
right.
we built the house in 1989. We completed construction.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a beautiful place too.
Thank you.
I mean, I wish I could take all of you guys on a tour, but I won't do that. This is about Paul today. Let's start off with, where were you born?
I was born in the other hospital in Duluth.
The other hospital in Duluth?
Yeah, because everybody heard that Bob Dylan was born in Duluth. Right? But I was born in the other hospital in Duluth, St. Luke's. Yeah.
Did you grow up there the whole time?
Well, that was where my mother's from.
Okay.
So, she had gone back to have me at home. And then my father was a school teacher. My mother had been a school teacher. We ended up settling in St. Paul, Minnesota. Okay. And I grew up in St. Paul. I mean, I went to elementary and high school there.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I've got a brother and 3 sisters.
Where do you rank in there? Where are you ranking?
Where do you think I rank in there?
You're the first?
I'm the oldest.
You're the first.
Yeah, of course I am. Yeah.
Are you close with your brother and sister?
Yeah, sure.
So have they been out here to Japan to visit with you?
My brother worked in the Navy in Yokosuka for a while. And my sister, the middle sister, she's the one who stayed independent and traveled a lot around the world. Okay. And the other 2 more domestic oriented.
Wait, you said you had one sister, one brother. Wait, how many siblings?
3 sisters.
3 sisters?
And 1 brother.
And 1 brother. And the brother's the youngest?
He's the youngest.
Okay, so you have 3 girls in between the 2 of you.
Yeah.
How many years between you and your brother?
12.
Wow. So then he never saw you.
Yeah, I was away at college.
I
left I left the United States.
Right. So when did he get to know you? When did he get to know you?
Well, we got closest actually when he was on the Midway in Yokosuka.
The same mother and father?
Yes.
Okay, so your mother and father stayed together all the way through?
Yeah.
Are they still with us now?
Nope, they both passed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because it's possible. You're only 2 years older than me, so your parents are probably would have been the same age as mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly.
My mother just turned 95.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's still doing
got
well.
those years. That's good.
She's going for it. I brought her here when she was 91. She had a good time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, when you were growing up, were you more academic or more sports-minded?
I didn't have, let's say, the normal sort of summers where kids would just play ball and ride their bikes around. My parents being school teachers, they had the whole summer off. So instead of that kind of summer existence, which in St. Paul, Minnesota, was a great existence. We traveled. My father was the representative for the Minnesota State Teachers Association, and he would go to the conventions, which tended to be on either the East Coast or the West Coast. So we would get in our Ford wagon, and there was pulling a 20-foot house trailer behind us, and would travel through the mountains and across the deserts and around the waterways to both coasts. So you go out one way and then come back another way. So we saw quite a lot of the United States. But when I was, getting back to your original question, when I was in school, I was involved in so many different things. So I would be on one committee for like running the school paper.
No, I'm thinking, let's start elementary.
Elementary?
Yeah, elementary first.
Elementary.
Yes.
I just had the usual elementary kids,
But were you traveling were you traveling at the same time during elementary school?
During the summers.
During the summers. So you couldn't play with your kids, your friends or anything. You were traveling places.
I was traveling pretty much.
Did you ever stop, did your parents ever stop to see family across the country as they were?
Well, that was one of the incentives, was to go and see family, especially on the West Coast.
Whose family was that, your mother or
My father's family.
Okay.
Because they were from Norway. That was the Norwegian side of the family. And my father's mother's relatives had been on the fjords, and they were fishermen. So when they emigrated to the United States, they went and set up in Oregon and Washington State, and they had their salmon fishing boats. So the guys would go during the months when you fish salmon, and they'd go up to Alaska, and then come back down, and they had their docks along the Columbia River and in Puget Sound on Bainbridge Island.
Did your father come from a big family? Did he have a lot of siblings?
No, just a brother.
So he just went to go visit his brother, who probably was still there in either Washington State.
No. These were relatives from my mother's side of his mother's side of the family.
Okay.
Who had emigrated at the same time as his mother had emigrated, but they went further west.
I see.
And they got on the salmon fishing.
So your father had one brother, and your mother had?
My mother had a brother and a sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were they from the West Coast as well?
No, my mother's from Duluth, Minnesota.
Duluth, Minnesota. That's what you said.
Right.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to keep track with all this.
I'm moving fast for you.
You're really fast. I'm telling you, real fast. So growing up in elementary school, you had a regular elementary school. Junior high school, did your parents try to, guide you in any direction? Because you were the first child. You were their first experiment.
Right. There were no junior high schools when I went to high school. St. Paul, Minnesota still had the 8 and 4 system.
Gotcha.
So it was a few years after I graduated that they had switched over to the, what was it? I'm not.
Junior high. They had it was a 6, 3, and 3.
6, 3, and 3.
That's what it was. Yes.
So when I went from elementary school to high school, I was one of the last classes where they were still doing that. So we had a very small, tight little group of students because the other kids were now being sent off to the junior high schools to get them started up. And I had been doing a lot of work at my church. I sang in the choir. I was involved as an acolyte and things. So I got to high school. It was just one of those things you do. You just keep on singing. So I became a member of the choir when I went to high school and was involved in musicals and holiday performances and concerts, etc.
Did you have the voice then too? Had you puberty
I was a
struck?
tenor.
Had puberty
I was a tenor.
You were a tenor. Okay.
I played a leprechaun.
A leprechaun. Did your father sing as well? Was he?
No, neither of my parents sang.
Okay.
I don't know what got into me.
Right.
It's one of those things where you don't really know where your character comes from. sort of gets dropped on you, you
Right,
know.
right.
And every family, all the kids are all different, right?
Right.
So it just develops as any kind of outside influence. And as I said earlier, you know, I was in that small group of kids in
Now, how many
the
were
first
there?
freshman class.
How many kids did you have in your class?
There were probably only a couple hundred at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we got looked after by the senior and juniors who saw us coming in, and they knew it was the end of the freshman class.
That's right.
You know,
Wow.
good fun.
All right, so going through, so where did you start to focus most of your energy? Let's say in high school then.
High school, I got involved in virtually everything. I played tennis. I did a little swimming in the wintertime on the team there. I worked on the newspaper, school yearbook. I was also quite busy at our church because the church had decided very early on to set up a youth center at the church.
What type of church was this?
It was a Lutheran church in St. Paul.
Right.
And quite unusual to set up a youth center that had a basketball court, that had a craft room with a dark room, and I got heavily into photography when I was there. And in the middle of all of that craft room, there was a pool table. So we go to church to play pool, right?
They hadn't had one before? Or they did, and it was something, it was set up differently?
They had moved to a new church building.
Okay.
They had a large piece of land so they could, develop.
Okay. So this was something new for your church?
It was very new for our church. And so they hired a youth director, and the youth director was involved in setting up all the different programs that the kids were involved in. So I'd be at church all weekend. And then through the week I'd be busy at school, and I'd go back and forth.
Were your parents active in the church as well?
Yes.
They were?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah, my father always got on a committee to run something. So
did you listen to your father speak often?
Never really had an opportunity because the committees, the organizations he was involved in weren't the ones where kids would be invited, you know.
But I thought him being a teacher, was he a teacher at your school?
No, different school.
Oh, different school. What about your mother?
Well, remember those three sisters. So they came along after I got into high school, so all through elementary, my mother was busy with my sisters.
Oh, so she stopped teaching?
She had stopped teaching by that point, and she was, she liked to make clothes, so she made matching outfits for my three sisters. I don't know when that ended, but she loved doing that.
How'd you get along? I mean, did
and
you?
then I was the older boy.
How many years between you and the sister after you? How many years?
3 years.
Oh, 3 years. That's pretty good. So you two are probably the closest.
Why is it good?
No, because I've talked to so many different families.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many families, and I found out that if it's after 3 years, they usually don't have a connection. There's too much space.
Oh, I see.
That's what I'm saying. But if you're 3 years apart,
yeah,
or you have something bringing you together, like my sons, they're 6 years from the oldest to the youngest. So I was able to sandwich them all together and keep them close.
right.
So the oldest and the youngest are close, the oldest and the third.
So let me revisit what I was telling
please.
you earlier. In the summer times, the whole family got in a station wagon
Understand?
and drove thousands of miles
Right.
in the car.
Okay.
So there was no chance to get away from them.
I understand that, but I'm saying, but that just, I mean, you can only play games like guess the license plate tags and all that stuff. And
Read the Burma
read the
signs.
Right.
I took it upon myself to be the navigator. So every time we'd stop
So you had
at
the
a
map.
gas station, you know, in those days, you know, you didn't have the internet, you had maps.
You had to make sure.
And so I would always go pick the maps that I needed to make sure I could, keep track of our route. So that was my job in the back seat.
Okay. That's neat. But you did stay close to your sisters. I mean, you never felt any kind of rivalry or anything else? She's 3 years younger than you, so she never had the strength you had. And there's lots of, but she could have had the academic prowess that you had, because girls are pretty quick.
Well, Lance, you know, I had my own room. My sisters had their room that they lived in. After I got access to a car in high school, then I was out with my high school friends and my church friends. And my sisters were still younger and at a different stage of development. So it wasn't necessarily something where we had to hang out together.
I never got to that stage. By the time they were to that age, you were gone.
And I was gone because as soon as I graduated from college, I went in the Peace Corps in Korea. Vietnam has been going on since the 50s when the French wouldn't give it to the Vietnamese people, right?
But I'm talking about when we got involved. We got involved.
I didn't get involved. I said, no way I'm going to get involved in that. So I was anti-war.
So you enlisted into the, you went into the Peace Corps.
I was in the Peace Corps in Korea.
But doesn't that only last for is that a 2-year
It's a 2-year volunteer
right.
thing. It is not a substitute for military service.
Exactly.
I applied for conscientious objector status.
And they gave it to you?
They didn't.
Okay.
They rejected it. They didn't want to have conscientious objectors on their tally.
Okay.
So they just sent me a 1H, which is the number, your draft number is too high. Now they lied to me because my draft number was less than 100.
Mine was 6.
Well,
but I enlisted.
You enlisted.
I didn't want to go to
I wasn't going to enlist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me, that was a great experience making a statement that the United States was wrong in what they were doing there and that I wouldn't participate in that.
Did you get any flack from friends or?
The United States was divided on Vietnam, so there were always somebody there who thought we should just go and, get militarily involved and try and stop the North Koreans. But those people didn't bother me at all.
Okay.
I had a voice, then I used it.
From college, you went into it was after college you went into the Peace Corps.
That's right, yeah.
What were you studying in college? What was your focus?
I studied philosophy and history, and I almost had enough courses for an English major as well. So I was quite busy with a lot of different studies, but like in high school, I was on the newspaper, I was on the student government, I was on the yearbook, so I was doing a variety of things. How'd you know
to get involved in that? Was that because your parents had prompted you ahead of time, telling you might want to get involved in this and that, if you remember?
Well, the friends that I had were all involved in running those types of things, and so they would naturally ask me to help out.
Okay. Are you still in touch with any of them?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, you are? So you go back to the reunion? How do you feel when you go back to a reunion? When was the last time you went back?
Well, I'd never been back to any reunions. So my first actual reunion was last year for my college 50th anniversary. And my sophomore year roommate was on the committee that was organizing it. And they were looking around for a keynote speaker. And he just railroaded me into that position. He calls me up, he says, "Hoff, you got to come here and do the keynote speech." And I go, "Really, John Eric, do I have to do that?" And he says, "Yes, you must." And there didn't seem to be any second thoughts on their part, so I went back in June last year and gave a keynote speech.
What was it like for you?
A lot of people I'd never seen for 50 years. If you've been to reunions where there's been that time gap, you find that some of your friends might be there, but in the conversations you have, then you meet other people and you learn about their experiences. And that was nice. It was good to talk to people that I had known and then to people I hadn't known, but they had done interesting things.
Okay.
For instance, one of my classmates, a woman who I didn't know in college, but she ended up working for Sanrio, which is a major Japanese company that owns the Hello Kitty brand. And she was involved in the project to bring Hello Kitty to the United States. So that was kind of fun to listen to her side of the story on that one.
After you finished the Peace Corps, after college, and you finished your 2 years in the Peace Corps, what'd you do from there?
I was asked to do a training program.
Now, you're still single during this time?
Yeah, yeah. So when I got out of the Peace Corps, they needed help to train new volunteers. So I worked for another 3 or 4 months for the Peace Corps office to help train people. And when I finished that and got paid, I packed everything up and I took a train from Seoul to Busan.
You weren't living still in St. Louis. Where were you living?
Seoul.
No. Oh,
Seoul,
so you mean
Korea.
I know. So you went there for 2 years, and when you got out, you didn't come back to the States. You stayed there.
I was staying there and I worked.
Oh, okay.
And then I went from Seoul, where I'd been living and working, to Busan, and I caught the boat to Shimonoseki.
Why?
Because it was cheaper than flying.
Okay. Why do you want to go to Shimonoseki?
Because I was then continuing on to Kyoto.
Okay.
To go and see friends that I had who were at Kansai Gaidai in Hirakata.
Had you had a chance to go to Japan while you were in Korea during the Peace Corps?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
And that was your first experience?
Yeah.
Going to Japan, okay. How many times did you go during your 2-year stay?
Twice, I think.
Okay.
Twice.
And you liked it?
Yes.
Compared to Korea, how'd you feel?
Well, Korea at that point still had not undergone the kinds of changes that Japan experienced in the 60s and 70s.
Right. What year was it that you were in Korea?
I was there 73 to 75.
73 to 75. I came here in 74, okay. To 76.
Yeah. And then when I came here in 75, that was when the export industries were growing quite rapidly, and they needed English teachers. So I joined a company in Osaka. I was introduced through some people that I met at Kansai Gaidai, and I worked in Osaka for 3 years.
Okay.
And
So
then got transferred to Tokyo.
They obviously took care of your visa and everything.
Yes,
The company
that's
that you
right.
were at.
Yeah.
So you stayed there for 3 years, and then you transferred from that same company to the same branch?
I was
same
transferred from Osaka to Tokyo to take over the management of all the personnel who were in the teaching programs.
Okay. So how long did that last?
I stayed in that position for 4 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And marriage, nothing had happened yet? During that time?
Nothing had happened.
No, I mean,
Well, I wasn't married.
I know. I mean, a lot of stuff happened, but I mean, I'm trying to take you on the course to where you are. So during that time, you hadn't met your wife?
Oh, I had.
Okay.
Because we have mutual friends in Osaka. So
When you met her when you came to Tokyo? You met her?
We met in Osaka,
In Osaka?
originally. Yeah,
All right.
that's right.
And then from then, she came with you to Tokyo?
We were not together,
Okay.
but we actually moved to Tokyo on exactly the same day in August of 1978.
Unknowingly.
Yeah.
You didn't know. That's something you found
I
out
didn't know
later.
she was going to move in down the block from me. And then my friend, Dick goes, "Hey, I'm going to come over and see you today." Good, okay. He says, "But I'm going to go see Naomi first." What do you mean? Well, she's moved to Tokyo too. And that's when I realized that she had moved to Tokyo.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said, well, since she's moved here, we might as well get married.
That took a few more years, actually.
Okay, so you have that position. You stayed there for about 4 years. Then from there, where'd you go? You never went home during this, or thought about going home to stay there? And you like
Minnesota? Man, I don't want those winters.
I've never lived there, so
I don't want those winters.
nobody wants them.
I
Somebody
decided-
obviously wants them.
I decided I didn't want those winters.
Your
And
parents weren't asking your first son? Come on, come home.
the sequence of events that I've described has been me moving from one more interesting job to a more interesting job to a more interesting job. To be promoted to, a greater responsibility in each of those positions. And when I got to Tokyo it was Time Life Books, a subsidiary for teaching English in Japan to corporations, I was involved in a lot of the new projects that were being started up. It's the first time that English language programs were being put on laser discs. So we were working with Pioneer, and I had hired an editor out of a TV station in Seattle, because I was doing the personnel recruitment as well. So I brought him over, and he helped with that. I hired a lot of people out of graduate programs in the United States who wanted to come to Japan. It was a thing to do. And these people were very experienced, and we did a lot of special programs for Japanese corporations. We called it ESP, English for Special Purposes.
Right.
So it was a very exciting time. But when I made the switch out of that corporate English teaching program over to a securities company, it was at that point when the Japanese Ministry of Finance agreed to open up the securities markets to foreign participants. Up till that time, the banks have been able to do banking business, lending, and usual financial transactions.
What was the year?
And so this was in 1982 that I joined a financial institution. And I just happened to know somebody in a British company, and they wanted me to help them with setting up the office and setting up the research department. And they liked the fact that I had management experience in Japan, running operations not only in Tokyo but in other cities as well. So when I joined them, I had to go to London for 6 months, and I did training there, on-the-job training, and some courses to prepare me to become a full-time member of the London Stock Exchange.
Had you ever been to London before? They sent you?
I had traveled there, but I had never worked there, obviously.
So what was the feeling after you'd been in Japan for such a long? You'd almost been here 8 years at that time, right? About 8 years?
82, so I went to Korea in 73,
so
I'd been outside the United States for about 9 years.
About 9 years you'd been here before you went to London, right?
For the training courses.
For the training.
Yeah.
What was it like for you? I mean, the cultural shock. Because you'd gotten adapted to this environment.
That's right. Well, the UK for me actually was quite familiar, because in Japan I had hired a lot of Brits and Australians and New Zealanders to teach English in Japan. And I had them on my staff, and so I was very familiar with them. And I learned a lot of British slang, and I learned a lot about Britain just by, being with them socially as well as professionally.
Did you ever try to use the accent?
Didn't need to use the accent. The most important thing was to be able to understand what was being said. Now, when I got off of the airplane, this is June of 1982, and I go up and I get in a taxi.
The black cab.
A black cab.
Right.
And the cab driver, as I'm getting into the cab, says, "Mind your nut, Gov." Now, do you know what that means?
Your head, right?
Right.
I know that, but
Yeah.
as an American, you say, "Mind your nut."
And I got in the cab and I sat there and I said, I just understood what he said. I understood what he said. Mind your nut,
language.
Gov.
Right.
Right? Sir, please watch your head. Okay. So after that, it wasn't so bad. It was, learning more colloquial phrases,
Right.
etc.
Right.
And I was...
Well, you're lucky you were in London, because if you were up north in some of the other areas, you wouldn't have understood what they were saying.
Right. Well, I mean, I was there for a very specific purpose, to
Right.
train in the city of London. And, the people around me were all professionals in various securities businesses and practices. So I was dealing with somebody other than the cab drivers.
That's true.
It was an exciting time for me.
Oh.
Then I did my 6 months.
But you weren't married. You're still not married.
No, I'm
Okay,
not married.
I want to get up to that time.
Do you want me to just jump to the
no,
marriage?
No. Let's go. We have time. Let's go on.
So we, let's see, I got back to Tokyo the end of '83, and this was a time of very rapid expansion for these foreign companies. So they couldn't set up inside a bank that was their parent company. They had to have independent offices. So you had to go around and find office space and set it up and start running the operations. And I had some experience in those kinds of activities. So it was a great time. I used all my skill sets, and I switched companies after 3 years. I saw a better opportunity at another company. And
financial firm as well?
Yeah, just it was a competitor, but they had been acquired by a bank that was going to give them much more independence in terms of developing their business, which meant that I would have more independence as well. But everything was going very rapidly. The banks were all making acquisitions so that they could have all the different securities bits and pieces for their global operations as well as for Tokyo. The Japanese stock market was expanding greatly. There were more and more companies listing. With the market going up, of course, the market capitalizations were increasing. So that was '83. By 1989, if you recall, the market capitalization of the Tokyo Stock Exchange was greater than that of the United States. Now, everybody thought that was a little too much. And lo and behold, it was, and then the market crashed. So I was there through that whole build-up, the crash, and I stayed working in that organization until 2002. And I was doing various different jobs, so I got involved in the corporate finance department and global M&A activities as well.
Did you find it enjoyable? Did you enjoy what you enjoyed?
Oh, very much so, yes, yeah. Part of that aspect of the business is that you need to travel. And then you're having many visitors coming to Japan, hoping to get Japanese financial institutions to invest into their markets and into their IPOs. Mm-hmm. So it was dealing with a wide range of people, actually.
So when was it that you stopped working with the financial organizations?
Last month. I've been steadily employed in the finance industry from 1982 onwards. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So you retired, but you still are called to do certain jobs every now and then, like on contract in a way.
Yeah, I have been working full time since 2015, but I had a part-time position. I was doing odd jobs for various investment banks, so I've been involved in a number of things.
Okay. Do you want to talk about your marriage?
Well,
you don't have to. I mean,
you keep popping the question.
I'm just wondering because that's
just
part
keep
of
popping.
But we don't have to. We don't have to. We can go on from there. What do you?
So
okay.
All right. I'll get around to the marriage now. So when I came back from London, set up a new apartment, go and meet all my old friends, and met a lot of new friends, obviously. And that's when my wife and I met up again. And so after, what was it then, another couple of years, then we got married.
Okay. And you have 2 sons?
We have 2 sons.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good.
Anton is the oldest, and Thor is the youngest.
Are they both in Japan now?
Anton's in Japan. He's working in Tokyo.
Okay.
And Thor is in New York, and he's been there ever since he graduated from college. He graduated from Fordham University there.
Aren't they the same age as my sons? How old is your oldest?
He's 33.
Okay, so he's younger than my oldest. My oldest is 36.
Yeah.
And so he's Lonnie's age. Lonnie's age. Because Lewis is a little bit older too.
Anton got out of Nishimachi when it was a very difficult time to get into high schools. So he didn't get into ASIJ. and he went to YIS.
So two of my boys went there.
And I think YIS is a very good program. The International Baccalaureate gives you just as many college credits as a American school AP course.
Right.
And it's a little different. I like the way they organize it, actually.
I like the way the kids responded to adults.
Mm-hmm.
They wasn't so cliquish at YS as it was at ASIJ.
Yeah,
ASIJ
smaller
had the cliques.
school. And,
yes. But they didn't promote that anyway. I mean, you'd see the older kids working with the younger kids more readily and easier because it was a little bit smaller school. And they really did work together well. At least my son's grades. It was really nice.
Yeah. Thor did go to ASIJ. He left he left NIS, Nishimachi International School, the year before the program ended there, because he wanted to get 4 years at ASIJ. And he did the full AP program, and then he got accepted to universities in the United States and decided on Fordham.
Okay. Neither one of them are married yet?
No.
Okay.
No.
Two of mine have gotten married.
Congratulations.
Yeah, the two middle ones are married. I'll be a grandfather in February.
Congratulations.
First girl.
Congratulations.
Should be interesting. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So what do we find you doing nowadays? You said you're still doing some jobs for your financial firm. You do that every now and then. Outside of that, what will we find you doing?
When I moved to Itoh City, I started...
This is considered Itoh City?
This is Itoh City.
How far does Itoh go? That includes Izu as well. This is the peninsula.
Itoh is along the east coast.
Right.
So Atami is the city on the north end of the peninsula. Then it turns into Itoh around Usami village and comes all the way down here to Akazawa. Akazawa then borders on Higashi Izu City. So it's got quite a long coastline. And it's a very historic area for a number of different reasons. We moved here because this had been a area where a lot of development took place in the 60s when the Tokyu Corporation completed the train line from Itoh to Shimoda. It just opened up this whole stretch to further development. As you know, I mean, any rail line it's a real estate play. Okay,
That's right. That's right.
So this development that we're in is one of the major developments that was done in the 60s, and there's a lot of interesting people who had second homes here, and some people who retired here, like we have done. And through a number of those connections, and eventually I got introduced to a fellow who was quite active in the Itoh City efforts to promote themselves internationally. Itoh City actually has a sister relationship with a city in Italy just outside of Rome. Quite an interesting place.
Are you involved with the governance here too in Itoh City?
No, these are privately owned companies, so we're just paying our fees for the maintenance, and we pay water. So as I met more of these people, and I met this one guy in particular, he told me that they had this organization that was doing this, felt that there was a need for more English language programs in Itoh. People wanted to hear English, you know. So they decided that they would have a speech program, so they'd have somebody give a speech every once in a while. And he asked me to do the first speech. As always, I rose to the occasion and did a wonderful job.
Now, when was this? When was this?
That was, well, it was supposed to happen at the beginning of COVID, but it got postponed for a couple years. Okay. So I had plenty of time to practice. When I gave the speech, we did it in April last year at the Itoh City hall there.
How many people were
present?
present?
We had 70 people show up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So foreigners, but also Japanese who wanted to hear more English. And then in that group, there was a man from the promotion office for Shimoda. And he asked me to speak in Shimoda. So in January of this year, I gave the same talk in Shimoda. but they wanted it in Japanese, so I had to do it in Japanese. And since then, I've given the same talk on the history of Izu online in a group called Informasia, a very interesting group that does a lot of scholarly presentations. It's a once a month online thing. Mm-hmm. And then also I did the same presentation at the Tokyo American Club for the...
I remember, because we had you were featured in the In Touch magazine.
I was in the magazine.
You were in the magazine, right.
Yeah.
And that went really well. I heard you had a good turnout for that.
Yeah, they had originally had about 30-some people registered, and I was in the club that day, so I ended up with a lot more people saying, "Oh, you're talking? Okay, we'll go." Right. So I think we had about 45.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's a good turnout for our.
It was a good turnout.
That's
yeah,
nice.
And it was fun. So many friendly faces, willing to listen to me talk straight for an hour.
Well, I always enjoyed the way you host the wine presentations at the Tokyo Club.
At the Tokyo Club.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So that work that I've been doing on this speech, that's now turned into something I'm doing in many other venues, has got me to the point where I realized that because there is a dearth of knowledge about Izu, and it's such an important place now, being close to Tokyo, and we've realized the benefits during COVID in particular. Now that there's Airbnb, anybody in the world can figure out how to come to Izu.
What happened during COVID?
Oh, people came down here and just isolated from Tokyo.
Oh, okay. So a lot of people, you mean that had places here, or that just knew someone?
That had places, they used Airbnb to find them, or they just came down and found a house and bought it or rented it. So there was a large influx of people during COVID who wanted to get out of Tokyo. Yeah, and foreigners who wanted to spend more time in Japan found Izu a very nice place to come.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and so that was a very good outcome from COVID. Actually, it really opened up Izu in a way that it hadn't had before.
So that's where so now you spend your time. You said you still golf. You golf often.
I golf, but I golf poorly.
Okay.
So I choose my golf partners carefully. It's really bad when I'm giving them instruction, right? But my wife has had a wonderful time down here playing golf. She's a member of a couple clubs, and
they have some golf courses around here.
Oh, there's plenty of them. Yes.
Really? They really must be hilly too.
They are pretty much.
They have to be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lost balls here.
There are, especially because it's a resort area too. So you don't necessarily get a lot of high-level golfers. There's a lot of entertainment golf, a lot of resort golf going on. So yeah, you find some good balls off in the bushes.
You go, wow, look at this.
That's right.
Initial too.
But Naomi has been doing quite a lot of golf, and she's gotten to a much better level than when we moved here. And by meeting people through the golf courses, some people have asked her now to start to caddy. So she's caddying at one of the local courses.
That's a good way to learn the course.
For her, that was a big step, because then she suddenly has to look at course management, not from her own perspective, but from the point of view of the golfers that she's there to help. And so it's been a very rewarding experience for her.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So tell me, how is she taking not having to have a full-time job?
Yeah, that was probably a big shock.
I was going to wonder, how long did it take for her to read?
She had taught for 20 years at Sacred Heart International School. So that was a bit of a shock. But she still has maintained her work at the American School, where she does the costumes for the musicals, and she just finished a play, the Baker Street Irregulars, just a stage play, but she did all the costumes for that as well.
She'll actually make all the costumes?
It's a combination. They go and they look at all the old costumes that they have. see if those can be repurposed. The director obviously has an idea of the look that he wants or she wants. Then there's the internet. You can go on and buy all kinds of images, especially with cosplay and things these days. And then, if necessary, she'll make something. I think some of my old clothes have become costumes at ASIJ. Well, she's turned into just an amazing seamstress with all of that work that she's been doing, teaching sewing at Sacred Heart and working on the costumes at ASIJ. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of hard to get her to make things for me, but finally, this year, we found this material in Kyoto, and I said, "Can you make me a shirt with that?" And I bought the material, and she made the shirt.
Are these coins?
I made the buttons.
Okay.
I took 1 yen coins and I pounded 2 holes in them.
Oh, beautiful.
So they're nice big buttons for my big hands,
That is
Isn't that a nice shirt?
This is really nice.
It's a special
It's
material.
really nice material too.
It's called chijimi. It's got a special weave so that it keeps it fluffy off of your skin. Oh. So it's nice on a hot day like this in November.
Oh, that is nice. You have no intentions of ever leaving Japan?
Not really. I'm very comfortable here. This place was set up as a retirement home. You probably had the same problem I did. You come here, and you go into a Japanese living situation, and you're hitting your head here all the time.
You become a unicorn, yeah.
Right?
Right.
So when we built the house, I brought in the materials from the United States. So the doors are U.S. size.
That's right. And the ceiling height, it's really nice.
Yeah, we got a nice prow here. So you get the high roofs. Those are very important. And, of course, lots of windows. The guy who founded Airbnb went around the world visiting Airbnbs, small ones, to learn what was successful so that he could set up a company to build small houses. Okay, and I just saw this video the other day, and he described the situation. Okay, you got a rather small space, but if you've got windows on all sides, it makes it so much more livable. And that's what he found by going around the world and seeing places that people liked. And very fortunately, when we built our house, we have windows all around, and it makes it glorious. And while we're not showing people now the view, basically it's the view of all of the Izu Islands. We're looking south and east from our house towards the Sagami Bay with Oshima, and I can name them all, but
there's a bit of a haze. I'll make sure that this is put in, that we have this as you talk about it.
Yeah, it's a
what is that?
Lovely
What's
view.
that hill over there? One of the
That's
islands?
Oshima.
Oshima Island? Okay.
Yeah. That's an active volcano.
Okay.
So it goes off every once in a while.
But people are living there, right?
Yeah, it's got
That's
a
right.
sizable
People.
population.
Right. How long of a trip would it be from here to there by boat?
From Itoh City's harbor, you can take a hydrofoil for 45 minutes. You're there.
Have you been a couple of times?
Yeah.
Is it nice? What's it like? I think I've been over there. Have I not?
Well, it's a volcano sticking out of the ocean, so there's slopes everywhere. One of our friends from the American Club, Darren Yamashiro, is over there running a hotel.
Is that right?
Yeah. So if you go, there's a friendly face.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Paul, before I end the podcast, there's a question I always like to ask.
What, we're done already?
We're done.
Whoa.
But we can come back for some more. With all the knowledge you have now, if you could go back in time and meet the younger Paul, what advice would you give him, and how old would he be?
I'm not sure I have a particular message that would be specific to a certain time. I think in general, it gets down to the basics that we need for living our lives. So I'm very much a stoic. I saw a wonderful quote by Cicero the other day, a very famous Stoic, and he said, "All a man needs is a garden and a library." Now, my wife would argue that she needs a good golf course as well, but that Stoic approach, there's many elements, I think, from Buddhism that are very good as well to keep in mind, and certainly the fact that everybody suffers. So, let's just deal with it. Let's try and be helpful with each other and realize that it's all about giving, and it's all about trying to be compassionate. So that's something that at any stage in a person's life, you need to kind of revisit those basic principles.
You better said. Thank you so much, Paul.
All right. Thank you, Lance. I'm glad you came down.
I'm glad I came too. It's been forever. How long it's been a couple of years.
When did you start your podcasts?
3 years ago. So it's at least from the beginning.
It's been all 3 years then.
Yes, it sure has been.
But even before then, I suggested that you come down on your bike.
You did. You told me.
Because it's a beautiful drive.
You sure did.
In the Izuvian Republic.
It would be, I'm telling you. I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast or listening to it. And remember, it's all on loan, so continue to reach for the stars.
Because you're too blessed to be stressed.